Someone once asked me, "Why do you always insist on taking the hard road?" I replied, "Why do you assume I see two roads?" And so for me, I think it is that where at times I don't see two roads. I don't see the easier, softer way. I only see the hard way. But in that, that's where the real beauty lies in life. What's meant for us, truly meant for us, is so much harder than what isn't meant for us. And we get to decide that.
Welcome to Pebbles of Light, where we highlight the everyday people who bring hope, comfort, and light to others. I'm your host, Ann Maxson, sharing meaningful stories to help you find light in your journey. If the messages shared resonate with you, please follow, share, or support the podcast through Patreon to help keep the mic on and spread the light even farther. We ended our last episode with the pebble to choose one intentional act this week, whether that is an encouraging message, a quiet prayer, a moment of listening, and offer it freely without needing to know the outcome. Today, we're continuing that reflection with a conversation with Ryan T. Reichert about redefining success, not through title or income, but through faith, family, and intentional living. Let's get into it. Welcome to Pebbles of Light. I'm joined today by Ryan Reichert. From small town beginnings to global leadership, Ryan has learned that detours often shape us more than straight lines ever could. He's a speaker, executive coach, recovery advocate, and a man committed to helping others discover their God-given purpose. Ryan, thanks so much for being here. Please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. Really greatly appreciate being here on Pebbles of Light and just knowing that, Ryan T. Reichert, the small town is Hoople, North Dakota. I was born and raised there for about 18 years anyways, I guess, before I went to the University of North Dakota and joined the Army there and kind of went on a 23-year tour around the world and stopped in corporate America for a little bit. And then, now today, kind of summed it up in the side of being an author, being a coach, being a speaker, and proud of two growing girls now. One's in college and one getting ready to head to college. So it's been that's the fast elevator pitch of 47 years on this great planet. So yeah.
Yeah, and we made a cool connection when we talked before, is that your college roommate was someone I went to high school with. So
Right,
kind of
exactly.
like crazy small world.
Yeah.
Um, so in all those experiences, which of those experiences, becoming a father or being in the Army, like how did those experiences kind of shape who you are today? And what were those moments where were just kind of touchstone moments where you realized, okay, I need to kind of pivot or shift and do things differently?
Yeah, I mean, when I really, it's kind of interesting. You're talking, in the intro about, straight lines and, that's the way we want to get to a destination. And we just don't realize though, there's no true beauty in that. I mean, that's actually like really boring to just like straight line to success. I think about it, actually this morning talking to a guy about the next book that I'm pulling together and the dynamics of if it was like, just write it, send it to an editor, let them, do what they do, chop it up, make the changes, and send it back. Like you would never learn, you never become a better writer. I don't believe you'd never really find yourself in improving in such a way. And so I guess when I reflect on where were those pivotal moments in life, it was always through the mistakes I made. And, not saying ever that, joining the military was a mistake or becoming a father, any of that kind of things. But, only through the reflection of like my divorce did I really understand and appreciate like, what it was like to have a relationship where we communicated properly and, my children and I communicated in such a way where now today the relationships that I have with the girls, it's not just surface level. It's not like, just, hey dad, or, hey girls. It's definitely like wanting to truly get to know them on a deeper level than just the blissfulness of having your children in your life. It's really kind of understanding, who do they want to become, where are they going, their decisions that they're making. And it's all things that I probably went through and I took what I believed was the easier road, or when it was time to pivot, I didn't have maybe the people in your corner that you'd go to and go like, well, I'm kind of struggling through this. What should I do? Or maybe I just didn't even ask for help, because I still struggle with asking for help all these years later. It's certainly this, maybe an ego thing or whatever it is. But when I reflect today, kind of each conversation I have with the girls is deeper. It has more depth to it, and it's just really getting to know your children on a level, because before it was like, "Hey, dad's cool, he plays with us, we go on trips," and that was kind of about it, as opposed to really asking questions, being curious, and that can be a struggle because I know my dad is very curious, and before I used to always take it as he's trying to find like a mistake or something like that in what I'm doing. And it wasn't like he just really didn't know or he wanted to know. And I guess I'm finding that out more and more with people in general is the real ones are curious and they want to know more versus the ones that are caught up in themselves, which that probably means that I was really caught up in myself all those years.
I think that's psychologically expected during those teenage years to be kind of egocentric. But yeah, I think recognizing kind of the eternal nature of our kids is such a blessing, and thinking about that relationship that we have with them and how that isn't just bound for this time. But I had a friend who shared a quote about how she was at lunch with her daughter, and her daughter was a teenager at the time, and her daughter just got the giggles, as sometimes teenage girls do. And she just kind of had this little inspired moment of the majority of people who know my daughter will know her as an adult, but I have the blessing to know her at this, every stage kind of growing up, and how amazing that is to be able um, to recognize that and savor it, I guess, to know that we get to know these kids during these fundamental times, and the majority of the people who know them in their lives won't know them in that same way.
Yeah. I mean, let's see, try not to, I probably won't show, but on my phone, like the screensaver
Hmm.
that I do have is a time where we used to play camping at Cabela's in Lacey, Washington. And it was interesting whenever, you know, COVID had happened X years ago, and you'd go there and be like, obviously, there was no tents anymore. There was no, and it's just kind of that instant memory or whatever I would always have in a Cabela's if there was like the tent area and so forth to think of Saturday mornings when I take the girls there. And it'd be such a, special thing to have them like, be like, all right, I'll go and make breakfast as they like, had like the little campfire area set up for them and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
It was just one of those special times. And it's kind of like in my recovery journey today, and advocating for, other men and women that have gone through similar circumstances in their recovery, where you have that like burn in what drives you to become better. And so to me, that's just where I go is like thinking about these two little girls that used to, spend a couple hours Saturday mornings with their father, and to see their faces in this picture, it's just one to me where, simple just memory, but knowing that that's the reason why you work on yourself, or I work on myself today anyways, knowing that one day I believe, you have grandchildren, you want to be better than you were in that moment, possibly because you were tied up with whatever life was giving you at the time and continue to give you. So, yeah.
Yeah. So how has your definition of success changed from, let's say, 15, 25 to now? How is that, like, how has it changed, and why has it changed?
Right. No, before success was all built on title, financial, basically levels, I guess. I had a certain number in my mind that I would have been successful. In the military, it was retiring as a full bird colonel. I retired as a lieutenant colonel, so one level underneath that. So for me, it took a few years to really get past the fact that my military career wasn't a failure for myself. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are just like, we have no idea what lieutenant colonel means. It sounds like pretty successful. And, when I set the bar as a cadet, at colonel because we had a family friend who was a retired colonel. My uncle was a captain, in the Navy, retired. So I guess my surroundings kind of dictated that I believe like that title, that rank, that's success in the military. I think moving on to corporate America, I kind of was just like, it was money. It wasn't a title because I was basically, this job's easy. It pays pretty well. I could sit in it for 15 more years, retire at 59 and a half. The math problem says I'd have X amount of dollars in the bank at 59 and a half, and that's success. Today, when I look at it, success is when your daughter sends you a text of her picture yesterday, and it says she was shopping, and it's this T-shirt she's wearing. It says, "Put it on my dad's tab," and really cute. And this is where, yeah, I get emotional today because I realize I was successful all along in my military career and in corporate because I did. The kids were there and they were doing stuff probably like that. And I wasn't paying attention to it. I was too caught up in that title and that amount of money and so on and so forth. And I didn't pause to appreciate all the amazing stuff I had going on in my life that was so much more important. So success today is staying sober, putting the work in with, at church, volunteering, teaching 6th and 7th grade boys what it looks like to, follow what you believe in,
Mhm.
become better, become a man, become a good man. Those are the things today, I guess, that define success for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So as you do, speak with corporate leaders and things like that, how do you help them kind of recognize that the trajectory that they're focused on is taking away from this much more important trajectory that is much more fulfilling and much more successful in some ways?
Yes. Definitely, you always hear the balance, and I'm not a big fan of this balance. It's a complete mindset shift in creating intentional pieces of your life. Because I think for men, and I'm not downplaying this for women, because I know women go through it as well, women that I've worked with, where we do put those marks on the wall, and that is the definition of who we are. And you go to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day, whatever it's looking like for you, especially in corporate, it could be quite a bit longer than that. And you start to take things off. So for me, I coach like a 3 daily win process, and it's something where you do it between 5 and 9 to lock in your 9 to 5, and it's a physical win, a mental win, and a spiritual win. It gets you in this mindset then when you have the bad day, when you take a number of losses professionally, where you have like maybe a bad month or a bad quarter or possibly a bad year, it doesn't turn into the definition of your career then becoming a failure, a mistake, whatever. You start to look in the rearview mirror versus there's a reason why the windshield's bigger, right? It's this dynamic of being in the present moment, controlling what you can control, and just focusing on that. So the 3 daily wins is a big one for me always, to get people in the right mantra, the right focus on things they can control in their life, which normally accelerates everything else as we go into I have a focus framework that gets into how you develop specifically the areas that you want, where F stands for, faith, family, finances, the three areas that are probably going to be the most destructive if you have a slip in your life in any one of those, where it can be very detrimental, I guess, in your process. And I think of, as I reflect where, I was coming from previously, I didn't have a balance in any one of those areas because I didn't have faith in my life at the time. My family, we certainly kind of were all over the place. And then from a finance standpoint, when it really went over the deep end, I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. And so I didn't know what to do with it besides have a big party anytime we could have a big party, which normally that was a day that ended in Y, and took for granted a lot of the things that I had built. But that's part, as I reflect today, of seeing that that happens to a lot of us when you put in a lot of work in one area and not in the others. It's going to tip things over. And so, like I said, balance isn't the way I would look at it. I have a different way of framing it and then reframing it to where it allows you to focus on, faith, family, finances. You can start to see opportunities in every single thing you do through that consistency in your 3 daily wins. You prioritize that above everything else for yourself, because if you're not able to regulate yourself, you're a complete mess for your family, for your friends, for your finances, your faith, and everything else. And then there's a side to it, unconditional kindness. And it's actually funny. I was just up in Duluth, did a TEDx up there, and it was on kindness, the 6 steps to transform
Yeah.
our lives. And it's basically where we just smile, we say please, we say thank you, we say excuse me, I'm sorry, and then repeat that in all our interactions in our days and life to come. And it's just this ripple effect, this butterfly effect that allows everybody to kind of reciprocate it. And then that leads into the S of focus, is the standard. And so for me, I think I started with the standard when I kind of went into my sobriety journey and into recovery, and where I was like, I'm going to do 90 meetings in 90 days. That's the minimum standard of what I'm going to do, one meeting a day. And it led into lots of other things with working with my sponsor and so on and so forth. And so if you can't figure out the F faith side of things, I guess in the beginning, when I work with folks, we start with, what do you want your standard to become? Like, what does that look like today for you? And then moving forward, we'll start to adjust. And over time and space, I, the coursework that I do, the coaching that I do, it's all on a 90-day plan. And so in 90 days, after your first 21 days, you lock in your habits that you want to. So those 3 daily wins, what that looks like. And so basically the next 69 days in that 90-day work locks it in. And so whatever you've standardized in those 90 days, like, just become your life moving forward. It doesn't mean that it doesn't take some time after 90 days, where, don't get me wrong, I still have days where I'm like, get out of bed. I don't want to get out of bed. 4 o'clock in the morning. I do the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go kind of thing. And it
Yeah.
works for me. But it is that, like, being human's tough. It's hard. We want comfort. We crave comfort. So that's where it can really kind of become that, especially for corporate leaders, we got a lot of times where, you're expected to show up every single day, not have a bad day.
Yeah.
You need to have some type of framework that allows you, not to have bad days.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you were talking about like just making sure that you're thinking with the end in mind, I had a friend who talked about make sure your input matches your output, and how that's such great insight for even, teenagers, right? Be like, okay, if you want to become this, let's say you want to become a basketball player. I don't think Steph Curry became Steph Curry without practicing a lot, you know? And so there's some ideas there.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that one. For me, I think a lot in life, talent. I didn't realize talent only gets you so far.
Yeah.
And where the work comes in, someone like Steph Curry, who shoots what, 500,
Yeah.
5,000 3 pointers, I don't know, whatever it is a day, to become the one who's made the most three-pointers in an NBA career, but how many, misses, right? Like, you have to take the
It's true.
shots to make the shots. What does that mean? You're gonna miss some shots. You're probably gonna miss a lot more shots than you make. But that, to me, in life for all of us, especially as teenagers, I was telling my youngest, we're getting ready to go to Hawaii Pacific University and tour it here soon. And I said, if you have any inkling that this is what you want to do, no matter what, and don't look at money, don't look at, you'd be an 8-hour plane ride, at best, so the fastest we could probably get to you is in 24 hours if you want us to show up to something, but you have to do it. You can't go, well, this and that and that and this and this and that and that and this. Like, it's an opportunity that you'll never get again, really, possibly, because down the road, you get married, you have kids, whatever. This is your shot. This is your shot. And I think back to 30 years ago when I was her age and I wanted to go to West Point, the U.S. Military Academy. And I kind of put all my eggs in that basket. So, but when it came time to, like, from a physical standpoint, I had injured my knee in high school football. So I had a couple screws. And at that time, you couldn't get a waiver. So I, just went to the University of North Dakota. No big deal. That's where, my whole family had went to over the years. And it's great. But I think I always was, what if I would have had a better second kind of thing, right? And
Hmm.
so if you're first, oh, it's more expensive or it's far away or my friend's going here or whatever it looks like. If that's what you want to do, like, you have to do it. That goes to those opportunities and focus. It'll be there in front of you and you get to make a choice. And if you just constantly say yes, it's amazing where you'll end up in a short period of time because none of it is meant to hurt you in any of those choices that you're making. It's just one of those, it's either a lesson or a blessing. And today I can finally see that as I go through life where it's just having boundaries to say no, but not in a situation like this, I guess.
Yeah. I had a friend who gave me the advice that, if you're on the precipice of making an important decision, if you're prayerful about it, God won't lead you astray. He'll help you find the right path. That said, often the right path doesn't always feel logically to be the easiest path. For a reason, probably.
Mhm. I th Someone once asked me, "Why do you always insist on taking the hard road?" I replied, "Why do you assume I see two roads?" And so for me, I think it is that where at times I don't see two roads. I don't see the easier, softer way. I only see the hard way. But in that, that's where the real beauty lies in life is what's meant for us, truly meant for us, is so much harder than what isn't meant for us. And we get to decide that, though, and realizing I do this all the time today when I reflect, when I'm going through like hard stuff. Like, man, I could be on a beach in Mexico right now, retired, just doing nothing.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but is that very meaningful? Well, is that what I'm supposed to do? Are those like God's gifts that were put inside me? Am I helping anyone but myself? And it it goes back to that all the time where if it were easy, everybody would do it. And there's only one Anne and one Ryan in this world. So, like, we're specially put here with the gifts and talents and so forth to pursue things that help others in ways so they don't have to go through, maybe, or like, if they are going through it, it helps along the way. I think back to having mentors in the military, today I look at it as being a mentor in different programs that I'm in for people. And then in the business side of it, like a coach, I've never had more coaches and mentors ever in my life than I do currently. And I think about, yeah, how would I even operate without them in such a way because of all the years and their expertise? And it's still hard for me to do what I'm doing, but it makes it that much easier, them going, "Well, did you think about looking at it this way?" Before, I'd be like, I don't need any of this, like, I don't need help. Why would I want help?" So, I think that's to everybody listening out there thinking, who are those people? Who are those mentors? Who are those coaches? Or who do you want to have coach you down the road in life when you wanna, I think for me, right, it was like being a writer, like, how do you become a better writer? You get a writing coach, you work with, like, those best-selling authors out there that you're kinda in this same genre, same maybe thought, scope, shape. Same with coaching, how do you become a better coach? Probably work with coaches that have more years of longevity and different frameworks and tools that they have used. Same with speaking. I look at John Maxwell, and he basically his personal growth plans and professional growth plans, and look at, it's like a 30-day model in, the areas that you're choosing, 2 to 3 basically, because it's hard to do more than that, because for him, it's an hour a day for each one.
Mhm.
And you really do focus specifically on that. You get very much into, the smart side of, how are you, creating the metrics to actually see yourself improve. And it is just that, it's putting in that work to become, like for me, becoming a better speaker, becoming a better writer, becoming a better coach. But really, it's the intentionality. I mean, you really have to be intentional and believe on knowing that it is the work. Going back to Steph Curry and being a great three-pointer.
Yeah. So, kind of contrasting, I feel like in the military, sometimes humility is considered kind of a weakness. But I feel like with everything you're describing, humility is actually the strength. So, where did that kind of shift in understanding of humility occur for you?
No, definitely. When I reflect on my time in the military, it's all based on your leadership that you have at the time. So depending, the division commander has the way he does business, which then falls to the brigade commander, then falls to the battalion commander. And so for me, I always operated, I mean, I guess at all echelons, but really you would see who your battalion commander was and how they operated, or the brigade commander, I guess, at times as I moved up. And that's kind of where you take that humility and that, humbleness to light. The guys that I clicked with and worked very, very well with, they had humility and they were able to, toe the line and accept the consequences for their decisions and their leadership and military decision making. I don't know, at times though, I think I really struggled. You get officer evaluation reports every year or whenever it's time that the leader leaves. And you get the ones, where it's like, Ryan's great, top third, okay, very vanilla-y. And then you get the ones where it's like, hey, you're number one of 20, number two of 30, whatever it looks like. And for me, that like inflated my ego and that pride and so forth. And I guess when I transitioned into corporate, realizing that that dynamic possibly similar to the military, but it was in such a way that really was more based, I would say, on longevity. It certainly was this side of things where in the military, for me personally, I saw a lot of guys like wouldn't so much get fired, but they'd be removed from their position and, have a less leadershipy job kind of, but you still get paid and you're still part of the big A and everything else. For corporate, it was always just ebb and flowed with, how are the stocks doing? What does everything look like from an overall budget and purchasing standpoint? And I think that to me is where I started to see that the leadership that I was used to in the military unfortunately didn't exist, at least not in the concentrations that I was used to. And when I was laid off from corporate America about a year and a half ago now, coming up on 2 years, I was at a place where I'm like, you know what? None of this was who I was supposed to be. And that's where I really realized and in AA as well, where it is all about humility, being vulnerable, being transparent. I'm a huge advocate today of, nothing but the truth, kind of so help me God. It's just this dynamic where it doesn't basically help anybody or anything trying to sugarcoat something or, that'll buff out. It's like, no, that's broken, and we need to come up with a completely different way to do something. And I guess now I can see that. Before it was always the pride and the ego that got in the way.
That made me think of this quote. It says, "The joy we feel has little to do with the circumstances of our lives and everything to do with the focus of our lives." And I feel like you've summed that up really well with the things that you're doing now, and striving to focus on kind of being an instrument in the hands of God, in whether that's coaching or books or different ways to be able to connect with people and support them in wherever they're at in their path. And so thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely is more and more. I think all the time, the sixth and seventh grade boys, because that was the age when I started drinking, and to where I believe for me it was the path of not telling the truth. How do you manipulate things in life to get what you want? And when I see these little guys, I can't see that. They're not into drugs, alcohol, girls, any of the stuff, I guess, that, I started getting into at their age. Not saying that they won't go down a bumpy road in their life ahead, but I think to that end, when I reflect back, it was the moms that were always teaching us in Sunday school or catechism and so forth. And to have men model and, preach the gospel and so forth. I don't know. I just look today, it's completely, I have a different lens perspective per se to look at having, strong men in then strong women, like when it comes to just in general, men and women helping our children learn and teach them and so forth, that it advocates where they could possibly go, right? And understand that, the transparency involved in knowing that there will be mistakes in life that are made, and not to look at it as an epic failure, because we can learn from them. We can help others learn from them. Not saying that we won't go through them if we've heard someone, tell their story or share and have tools to work on to become better. But it's really just that side of it, is starting to see where you're plugging yourself into when it comes to the different groups and everything else. Because yeah, the isolation for me, I was always kind of isolated and insulated from being in different groups because I didn't need anybody's help. And I think I kind of touched on that earlier. And it's one where we just, for myself, I can really reflect today and go, yeah, you need to be in the middle of the pack. You need to be like Buffalo and, head into the storm, knowing that's the fastest way to get through a storm, and then learn
Yeah.
as much as possible along the way.
Yeah. I was going to make a reference to UND, but I was like, nope, it's NDSU. They're the Bison. Wrong school.
Yes, they are. It's okay. The rivalry has lessened for me over the years now as I think about people in my life that either went to NDSU or have children currently at NDSU. And yeah, now I'm like, it's good to have that rivalry, but at the same time, two different schools and no big deal.
And everybody trying to go out and do good is the
That's
goal,
right.
right? Um, Thanks so much for sharing all the insights that you have. If people want to learn more about you, where's a good place where they can find out more?
Yeah, there's two places out there. You can go to the business website, ourprotectordevelopment.com, which would have everything under the sun to, podcasts, the books, the courses. But we're transitioning to RyanTReichert.com, which kind of really has more of, like if you want me to come out and speak at any of your events or come in for a seminar with your team and so forth. And basically, either way, though, you can get a hold of me there. And then when it comes to social media, it's Ryan T. Reichert, or it's my old Yahoo email, but someone teased me that it's more of a vanity plate. It's Army RT 1978. And I think that's on like Facebook and maybe
or
one of the
somewhere.
other ones. But if you look up Ryan T. Reichert, you'll be able to find me anywhere out there.
Aw- Awesome. And we'll put the links in the show notes too. I've got one final question. So, one of the purposes of Pebbles of Light is to celebrate those relationships that have helped to brighten our path and in turn help brighten the paths of others. Could you share about one or two people who have placed a pebble of light in your path and have helped you on your way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. My mom is a huge pebble out there. She was a school teacher 42 years in North Dakota, went from, special education to visually impaired. It's really actually funny. She taught reading for a number of years, and I was so good at lying. I was in 3rd grade when I was being after school. My parents were there, kind of. And it's like we're gonna have to hold Ryan back. He doesn't know how to read, and my mom's like, "Oh no, what do we do?" kind of thing, and we got it all figured out. I learned how to read, obviously, and here we are today. But I really laugh at the Lord's sense of humor when I reflect on, the same dynamics, I guess, of, now you write books, like, but you couldn't read them until you were 11, whatever, 10, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely my mother. And, there's so many other pebbles of light today when I reflect on it. I'll keep it anonymous at this point, but I think of my sponsor in the program and the last, 2+ years that him and I have worked together. And there's still many times I need to heed to the word. When you're having a rough day, like, did you call anybody about it? And it's like, no, I wanted to figure it all out on my own, kind of thing. And you realize this is for everybody else out there listening. And if someone is placed on your mind, you should give them a call. And it's just that simple, where they probably need to hear from you, and you'll feel a lot better if you talk to them. So talk to them. And yeah, I greatly appreciate it, Ann, for the time and your platform today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. As Ryan reflected on military leadership, fatherhood, recovery, and humility, one thing became clear: success changes shape when we slow down enough to see it. What once looked like titles and income now looks like sobriety, presence, and a text from a daughter that says, "Put it on my dad's tab." This episode's pebble is to take 5 minutes this week and redefine success for yourself. Write down what truly matters, not what impresses, but what endures. You can find out more about Ryan, his books, and his coaching in the show notes. And if this episode encouraged you, please share it with a friend, leave a review, or support the show through the links that are found in the show notes. Thank you so much for being part of this community. Thank you for tuning in. My hope is that something helped you feel seen, encouraged, or inspired to bring light to someone else. If a name or moment stood out, don't let it pass. Reach out, express gratitude, or take that next step. You can connect with me anytime on socials at Pebbles of Light or at Maxson.com. If this episode was meaningful for you, please follow the show, rate or review, and share it with someone who might need a lift today. And if you want to go a step farther, you can support the show on Patreon. See you next time.